Hey everyone, this is Coloring Chemist. My name is Connie and welcome back to my channel. I am Frankensteining some marker pens today, so I thought I would bring you along on the journey because, I mean, what's more fun than playing with science equipment and art stuff at the same time? When I put in my order, well, let's talk about, before we talk about this, let's talk about this. Remember I said that I had been putting, or was going to put in an order for an empty Aqua Drop Liner pen from Schmincke. In my last video, I showed that I had purchased the multi-ink, Staedtler multi-ink blending liquid from Amazon UK. I don't know that this is available in the States and Canada yet. You can get it from Amazon UK, but I mean, you're going to pay for shipping. It says in the bottle that you can either use it with a brush or you can put it into a water brush. Now, I could have put it into a water brush, but like I mentioned in the previous video when we unboxed the 60 set, the new colors, I really like the Aqua Drop Liner. A viewer of mine had recommended this like a couple months ago for use with the Holbein Melts solution, which is another blender type solution. And so I had previously purchased another one of these, and they come empty, and filled it with the Holbein Melts solution. And it does work quite well. It has a lovely fine nib. Can you see that? And it's fiber. I mean, it will eventually fray. But the nice thing is you can replace the nibs. And you can just keep refilling the pen. When the pen comes, it's empty. So you unscrew it. And when you go to pull it out, the cartridge will come sort of with. Just sort of grab the outside of the cartridge. It's just plastic on the outside of the cartridge. The foam that holds the fiber that holds the liquid is inside. And it's just because the blunt end of the nib is sort of stuck in that little hole. So just sort of pull that off and then tap it so it goes back down in there. And then I guessed the Holbein Melts I put in here with a pipette, and you can buy packages of these pipettes. This is just plastic. It's a 1 milliliter pipette. They're disposable. Although I rinse mine a couple times and reuse them, depending on what I'm using it for. If I know I'm only going to be using it for one thing, I will just put a rubber band around, like I have a rubber band around my bottle of Holbein Melts with one of these pipettes sort of rubber banded to the bottle, just so I use the same pipette for the same thing all the time. I put in like 70, 75 drops-ish, and that seemed to make it pretty juicy, and then I can just sort of keep adding more Holbein Melt solution as I need to. So I did the same thing with, so my order came, and I got, I think the original one and this new one came from, it's an art store here in Canada online. It's called paintspot.ca, but I think you can get these through Jackson's Art. Maybe Blick? I didn't look. I'm pretty sure you can get them through Jackson's Art, though. Might even be able to get them on Amazon, I'm not sure. So I got a new one. And there's a tiny little box here where, because these are meant to fill with the Schmincke Aqua Drop inks. But because it's meant for water-based things, you know, the nib and the cartridge and everything else is geared for water-based things, I figured it would work for this blending solution. So there's a little box here where you can write in the color number, right, because you would be filling this with inks. I just wrote Staedtler MI Blender, multi-ink blender, and then I put a piece of clear Scotch tape, I think in the UK you guys call it sellotape, around just so it doesn't rub off. And I marked the other one, Holbein Melts, just so I know the difference between the two. And yeah, I mean, I thought we would, I don't know, give it a little try. This is just printer paper. I probably should use this in a coloring book, but I was just too excited. So I grabbed some greens, some fairly bright greens. This is the leaf green in the Pitt Artist Pen, and the May green, which is a new color, in the Staedtler Pigment Brush Pen. And I just wanted to see, how this would drag the ink out. Now, this is just printer paper. It's not great paper. I can't imagine if it drags it at all on here, it should drag it very nicely in smooth coloring books. That's my theory. So, and I wanted to try it with the Pitt pen too, just because. Now, you have to work quickly because, so I'm going to take the lid off both the pen and the blender. This is going to dry quickly. I mean, any ink dries relatively quickly unless you're working on a treated or a sized paper. So this is not, it's just printer paper. So if I lay down some ink, you know what, it moves it quite well, doesn't it? Now I realize you can still see the outline of the first ink that I put down. But again, this is just cheap printer paper. And then I always have, usually I have a scrap piece of paper off to the side where I would scribble off, either if I was blending with a lighter color, or in this case, a blender, just scribble it off, just so then when I go to use it for the next color, it doesn't have, you know, that color on it. Now I'm curious, going to try, so I just grabbed, this is lime green. I just want to see if there's any difference blending with. So this is, you know, blending out that green, that May green with a lighter color. That, I mean, on this paper, excuse me, that's the best blend I was going to get. And that's not bad. That's not bad. So you will see me using that blender in some coloring in the future. That's pretty neat. And, you know, again, the neat part is it's refillable. I mean, so I filled this pen, what did I say, 70, 75 drops? I mean, I barely made a dent in here. This is 50 milliliters. And I think 75 drops was maybe a milliliter-ish, maybe 2 milliliters. I can't remember. So, I mean, this is going to last forever. And when I purchased this pen, you can also buy a little baggie of 2 refill nibs. And so you can see them there. If this nib, I mean, it's going to get stained, but if you scribble it off and make sure that, you know, it's got no color left in it, it's fine. But it will eventually probably start to fray. These are just fiber nibs, so I can just stick a new nib in here. So, I mean, I think this is a really environmentally, and in the grand scheme of things, inexpensive way to be able to blend out these multi-inks. Now, they are water soluble, and you could blend them with just a plain old water brush. Give it a try. Oh, that's a flat one. Let's get, do we have one that's a point? There we go. This is a Caran d'Ache water brush. It's got a relatively large point. But I mean, you can blend out this ink with a water brush. But I think the multi-ink with the blender, and I can get you, hold on, get you down. Should have got you down in the first place, shouldn't I? Got too excited. Oh, goodness sake, Connie. So there we go. So there's with the water brush. There's with the blender that I put into the Aqua Drop Liner. And there's blending it out with a lighter color. Again, I mean, you can obviously still see where I scribbled out the original ink here, but this is just printer paper. And you saw here, I can move this with a water brush. I find I'm going to have more control with this. And I really, really like coloring in really small, kind of tight spaces with the Staedtler pens and the Pitt pens. And so in, you know, small tight spaces, I could see the water brush being a disadvantage. Whereas this is a nice, fine, pointy tip, just like, I mean, it's slightly longer than the Pitt pens and the Staedtler pens, but yeah, I think the multi-ink blending solution is kind of sticky. I mean, it's not just water, so just beware. I mean, you can clean it up with water, but if you get it on your fingers, it's kind of sticky. So now I'm curious, how does this multi-ink blending solution work with a Pitt pen? So I've got Pitt pen, leaf green, 112. Not as well. Interesting. It definitely, I think, picked up and moved the Staedtler ink better. Interesting. Well, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, I guess. It's made for the Staedtler ink. The Staedtler ink is, particularly on lower quality paper, which this is, the Staedtler ink sits on top of the paper a bit longer than the Pitt pen ink. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I'm just going to grab, so this is light green Faber-Castell. I just want to see how the Pitt pens blend. There's definitely a difference chemistry-wise. For those of you that don't know, that's my day job. I'm a chemistry teacher. There's a difference chemistry-wise between whatever the carrier, the solvent system is in Pitt pen inks and whatever the solvent system is in the Staedtler inks, because I can get not a bad blend using a Pitt pen to pull out another Pitt pen on this paper, but it did not work terribly well with the Staedtler blending solution and a Pitt pen. So that tells me, chemistry-wise, that whatever the carrier is in the Pitt pens, it's different than the Staedtler pens. So, I mean, that's on smoother paper, I might be able to get better results using the Aqua Drop Liner with Pitt pens. But you know what? If I can't, that's fine. I mean, I can use even, let's see how this works. So let's take, I've got a Pitt pen leaf green and a Staedtler lime green, which is, the lime green in Staedtler is very close equivalent to this light green in the Pitt pen. So I tried to choose colors that were similar. So let's see if happens if I you can even see there on this, cruddy printer paper, the Pitt pen, oh, I've got lids all over the place here. The Staedtler didn't pull the Pitt pen ink as well as the Pitt pen ink pulled the Pitt pen ink, if that makes sense. So I do use them interchangeably quite often, but there is a difference chemically in their inks. So, yeah, I think this is going to work quite well for the Staedtler pens, maybe less well for the Pitt pens, but a lot of it depends on the paper. I was really pushing the envelope here because this is not great paper. So there you go. I Frankensteined myself a little Staedtler Blender Pen. So yeah, got the liner, got some replacement nibs. I can refill this not a billion times, but quite a few times from that. And I didn't even need a pipette with this because it has this, basically a pipette tip. So yeah, I didn't even need to get a pipette. So that's pretty neat. So that's one pen that I Frankensteined. What else have I been doing here? Then because when I ordered that empty Aqua Drop Liner, the store had this on sale and it was a package of 6 Pebeo, which is the company that we often get our masking fluid from. Lots of people use Pebeo masking fluid. Color X markers, 6 empties. So these are empty watercolor. There's an empty one. There's one. Empty watercolor ink markers. And they've got a tip, I would say similar to, like the tips on the new, where's a new one of these? There's one. So this is one of the new Pitt artist pens. They call them their dual markers, and they've got a much broader, kind of chunkier brush nib than the regular Pitt pens, right? The regular Pitt pens have that really nice fine nib. This is much broader and chunkier. So this is even a little bit chunkier, but that's what it reminds me of. See that? It is meant for the Pebeo Color X inks to go inside. And quite often art companies will provide these empty markers basically for people to mix their own colors. So if you've got, I know Ecoline does the same thing. You've got these little jars of watercolor ink and they give you, a selection of colors, but then you can mix your own inks, your own colors using their inks, and then make your own specialty marker colors. So these were on sale. Now I could have tried putting the blender solution in one of these too, and I did think about that if the Aqua Drop Liner hadn't have worked. This is a bigger tip. I was really hoping that Aqua Drop Liner would work because it's the same size tip as more or less as the Pitt pens and the Staedtler pens. So I'm glad that worked. This would be bigger, and I mean it probably would have been okay too, but. So now I have this package of 6 of these empty markers. And I thought, I don't have Color X inks. I actually don't have any watercolor inks. Except I have Distress ink refills. So I was already in experimenting mode. And I thought, what would happen if I put Distress ink in here? I could create markers out of Distress ink colors. Now, I know you can just put the Distress ink in a palette and you can paint with it, right? But I had these anyway, and I was feeling experimental. So I thought, well, I wonder if that would work. So I took one of them, and I took some Victorian Velvet, which is one of my favorite colors, and I put it in this beaker. Now, I have science equipment at home because I homeschooled my daughter, actually. And so we did labs at home. And so me being me and me doing what I do, I did have a lab kit and some extras as well here at home for her to do science experiments. And I still have them. So I still have beakers. I still have, this is brilliant. You can buy these on Amazon. I mean, you can buy beakers on Amazon too. This is in a lab. For those of you that are sciencey, you'll recognize this. This is a wash bottle. You can use it for doing something in chemistry called titrations. You can use it in a biolab. Basically, it's a plastic bottle, has a screw top, and a long kind of straw thing that goes down in it. Okay? And a curved, it's like a curved straw, but then it comes to a really teeny tiny nozzle at the end. And it also has this little sort of removable cover for the nozzle. Now in a lab it would be, well, partly to keep the nozzle clean, and also so that when you pick it up, because with the slightest pressure, this will squirt water. So yeah, you put that on there so when you pick it up, you don't automatically squirt water everywhere. But it's really neat to have on my desk as a water supply because it's covered, right? It can just sit there, and then I can squirt water into water pens, like water brushes. You know, if I have, where'd my water brush go? I've lost it now. Oh, well, no, not the Caran d'Ache, because you fill these a different way. But, you know, I've got these Arteza ones. You unscrew the cap, I can squirt some water in there. I don't need like a pipette or anything like that. It's pretty handy. All right, so back to my Frankensteining. So I took some Victorian velvet. I took probably 2 dropperfuls, which, I mean, I guess is a fair amount of ink, but I mean, I can't, I mean, even if I had to buy another one of these, what are they, about $5-6? It's not, you know, I figured it was worth the cost. But it's really thick. If you've ever worked with Distress Ink re-inkers, it's quite thick. So I thought, well, that's probably too thick to put into a pen. So I took my trusty water bottle, and here's where the experimenting comes in. I have no idea how much water I put in. I squirted some water and swirled it and looked at it and thought, no, that's still too thick. So I squirted a little more water and I swirled it and looked at it and thought, nope, that's still... So I'm going to do another pen with you so you can see my Frankensteining process at work. Now, I overfilled this one. So I did this with Victorian velvet. I'm going to move this because it's probably going to... In fact, I'm going to get a paper towel. Probably going to be a mess. There's already some mess on the other side of this paper towel when I open this because I overfilled it. So we're just going to do this carefully. Oh, not too bad. So there we go. You can see, I don't know if you can see the color there. And if I write on paper, it does come out quite wet. Probably would have been better if I would have... You know what? We can try that this time around. Hang on. I was just thinking. Where is it? No, not that. No, not that. Aha! I have a little dropper bottle of glycerol. I think if I added some glycerol to the mix, but then it would make it thicker again. Let's just try it. What's the worst that could happen? You know what I should also probably add is a couple drops of rubbing alcohol as a preservative. Although I'm assuming this ink already has a preservative in it. I am using clean water. I live out in the country, and our well is an old well. We use it for washing things and you know, showering and everything. But we have a water cooler that we use for drinking water and cooking water. So that's the water cooler water is in here. It's not tap water. So it should be pretty clean. But yeah. So I mean it goes down pretty wet. But I think it dries. I mean, there's Victorian velvet there. I think that's Victorian velvet. That's the color. Now, I don't know. Do you need a marker that's got Victorian velvet in it? Probably not. But we're having a good time. So, you know, why not? All right. So let's see here. I was going to try one more. I don't think I'll leave the other 4 empty. I'm not going to do 6 colors because I just didn't know how this was going to work. I chose Salvaged Patina, which I also really love as a color. I think if I was going to do one more after this, I might do either Peeled Paint or Shabby Shutters. I don't know. I don't know if you need to shake these refills. Probably not. So I'm going to put... There's one dropper full. Can you see how thick it is? You know, like if I had put a dropper of water in there, it would have spread out immediately. So it's quite thick. Let's go 2 dropperfuls. And then I am making this up as I'm going along here, folks. Glycerol is quite thick. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 drops of glycerol. I have no idea. Rubbing alcohol. One, two, three. Yeah, three. I don't know why. Just 'cause. You can see that's still, it's pretty thick down in there. Take my water. Needs more water. Still needs more water. Now the other one, I did not have the additions of glycerol and rubbing alcohol, so all right. Just to see what color, because it's hard to tell the color when it's so concentrated in there like that. So just to see what color we've got, I'm just going to dip a little paintbrush in there. And is that the, I think that's, I think so. Ooh, I like the consistency of this this ink better. It's not quite so watery. I think that's a nice shade. Oh, now it makes me want to redo the Victorian Velvet one. Oh well. Maybe when it runs out. Now, here is the tricky part. There's instructions on the side for how to fill this, but it's how to fill it using the dropper and what have you from the bottles of like ink refills, the ColorX, Pebeo ColorX inks. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, well, I don't think you pull that out. There's a rubber gasket on the back end. And I'm assuming these Pebeo ColorX refill inks probably come with a glass pipette in the lid. Well, very much like these do, right? You pull this out, and that's a glass pipette. And then you have to push the pipette in. Can you see there's a hole in the middle there? And there's a rubber gasket. You have to push through the gasket, and then so that allows you to fill the cartridge inside with the ink. But I don't have, all I had was this. Well, actually, no. I did have so I have some syringes like this. And I thought, maybe that'll work. So I was doing the Victorian Velvet. I filled up the syringe because I thought this would be too flimsy because you can just bend these. And I knew it had to be relatively, solid to go through. So it didn't work and it made a giant mess. Here's the Victorian Velvet. So, yeah, we're not going to use this. This actually did work in the end, and then I cleaned it out so I could use it for the salvaged patina. So, we are going to drop some of this ink. And then I'm just kind of sliding my hand down the pipette because I need to sort of stabilize this a bit because I'm going to push it. You have to kind of give it a fairly good shove and you'll feel it go through the rubber gasket inside. And then I also discovered you can squeeze, but you have to be patient because I mean, you're squeezing and you're putting the ink into the cartridge that's in there, but you also have to allow time for that cartridge to sort of absorb the ink. So if you do this too fast, the ink comes spraying back out at you. And, yeah, I discovered a lot of things. So I'm giving pressure on the bulb of this pipette, but I just sort of slowly, and I don't know if you can see that or not. The level of ink inside the pipette is slowly going down. And I can see inside the marker, although it's hard because it's got a white label. If you can see, can you see that gap in the label there? The cartridge is picking up color. You just have to be patient. Because otherwise, ink ends up everywhere. So we're just being patient. There we go. Getting down to the end of it. You also have to, so if I let go of pressure, it does suck some of the ink back up. So when I go to pull this out, just have to be careful. I can see it's slowly making its way down the cartridge. You notice I didn't make very much ink. I made too much the last time, and it's the other marker is very overfull. So I'm hoping this time I didn't misjudge. And you know what? If I need to make a little more ink, I can. Sort of slowly going down there. So I was holding it upright just because that's the sort of the letting gravity do some of the work here too. There we go. See? You can see the color? That was all, well, looked like this, right? It was white, and now it's blue. Well, it's salvaged patina blue. Just like this one is Victorian velvet pink. But I can actually see where there's so much ink in this cartridge. There's actual liquid ink like on the outside of the cartridge, which as I use this will soak into the cartridge. This one does not look like I overfilled it. I don't see sort of loose liquid ink in there. Should we see if the it's soaked into the nib? Oh, not yet. It does take time. I can also help it along. I do have a tiny bit of ink left in the bottom here. My beaker. I'm just holding the tip and the leftover ink, seeing if it'll soak some of it up. I wouldn't have to do this. I'm just playing now. I can actually see the ink inside the pen moving slowly. It's inching its way down the nib. So before it would just stop there, but I can see it inching its way down the nib. So I hold it this way, that'll help too. Just trying to, yeah, weight-wise, a lot more ink in that one than this one. Oops. In fact, I'm wondering if I need to make a little bit more ink. Feels like there's not quite enough. Okay. Let's Frankenstein some more ink. Ooh, that's not the right color. Where'd I put the... Oh, there it is. I don't know, that's like sort of half a dropper-ish. And then we'll put just 1 drop of rubbing alcohol. I don't know, I put 2 drops of glycerol. That's probably too much glycerol. That's all right. Add our water. Oh, more water. Isn't this fun? You're thinking, not really, Connie. Just a touch more water. Now, before I stick it into this same marker, I mean, it's all salvage patina. And if I dilute, let's say this is more dilute. In other words, there's more water. The ratio of ink, pigment, to water maybe got a bit heavy in this one, so there's heavy on the water. So maybe this is a bit lighter. So I'm just going to check it next to this one. It's not really going to matter. I mean, it's funny, it almost looks bluer. Hopefully it dries the same color. It's all going to kind of get mixed in that cartridge anyway. I think it's more or less the same. I mean, if you think about it, if people are mixing their own ink colors, they're probably not. I mean, they might have recipes, you know, so many drops of one versus so many drops of another, but they're probably not absolutely identical, so we'll be okay. And this actually is, I mean, I put some pigment on the tip just because I was dipping it in there, but you can see it's moving. It's moving up the nib. I just feel like it's a little dry. So I'm going to, again, it's a bit of a push, but you can feel when it goes through. And then I'm just going to just slowly and it's sucking it up quite a bit quicker now. It's kind of always that way with cartridges, with fiber cartridges like that. Once you sort of get them started, then things go much quicker. Just want to look. So it took that ink, kind of a dropper full. I still don't see any sort of loose ink, you know what I mean? Like it hasn't overflowed the cartridge and is kind of sloshing around in there. So I'm going to let that sit just to let it, you know, kind of even out and mix and get into the cartridge. I'm going to put this aside. I don't think I'm going to need the rest of this. While that's sitting, this is the third pen I Frankenstein. This was, I don't know how I feel about this. So this is an Arteza water pen, or water brush. It's a one with a, you know, just that kind of a nib. I thought, I wonder if I can make my own, like, Wink of Stella, or quite often I use the Spectrum Noir version of the Wink of Stella, It's just called Spectrum Sparkle, Spectrum Noir Sparkle. It's called Crystal Clear, I think. And I really like I actually prefer this one to the Wink of Stella Clear, because the Wink of Stella Clear still to me has a little bit of a silvery sparkle to it, which is pretty, but when you're putting it over ice or snow or something like that, to me it makes the snow look a little bit dirty because it's got a little bit of gray mica in it. Whereas this one, the mica is quite clear. So I really do like this one. But I also have, if I just grab it here, this bottle of Winsor Newton Iridescent Medium. And it's meant to mix with watercolor to basically turn any watercolor color that you have into an iridescent one. So you can either mix it on a palette, or you could paint with your watercolor first and paint this over top. So yeah, mix with transparent watercolor or apply over a dried wash, particularly effective when mixed with transparent colors, especially over dark backgrounds. Shake well before use. So, I don't know if you can see in there, it's pretty sparkly. I mean, this is a plastic bottle too, but I'll show you. I have so many things. We're gonna cap this little water thingy so I don't squirt it everywhere. I have things all over this desk. Move the pen, move this paper for a second. In my swatch book here, I have, let's see here. There we go. So this is just sort of various sparkly, metallic, iridescent kinds of mediums. There's the Wink of Stella Clear, and we'll try and zoom in here. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up. So there's the Wink of Stella Clear. Is it picking up any sparkle at all? You know, it's funny, next to the other sparkles, particularly, you see that one right there? It's like these don't even want to sparkle because this is so sparkly. That is this. In fact, it got away from me, and you can see it I kind of smeared it onto the this Wink of Stella Silver up above. Here's the Spectrum Noir Crystal Clear. So it's got some shine, but again, there's the one that's in the bottle. That's pretty sparkly. So I thought, well, it's kind of I mean, you can use it with a brush. That works fine. But what if I could put it in a pen like this? Would that work? Well, I was doing all this other Frankensteining. Why not try this? So I did think about this the other day. And I knew that I would need something in here to mix, right? Because any of these pens like this that have mica in them, when you shake it, there's ball bearings in there, right? That's what they are. They're just little teeny ball bearings, or they could be glass, I don't know, to mix this, because you have to get that mica mixed up because it settles out. So I thought, well, I will need ball bearings. So my dad, who is a retired mechanic, had teeny ball bearings in his garage. So I went and borrowed some took them from him. He was okay with it. He was happy to help. And I just put them into the water pen. I did water this down some because this is quite thick. And I wasn't sure if it would come out the nib, but I think I watered it down too much. So I am going to grab myself another pipette, because the one I just used has blue ink in it. And I'm actually going to top this up with some of this just straight from the bottle. I'm going to put the lid back on this first, though. There it is. Because when I go to, because I did try it a little bit, and it's It's not as sparkly as I would have hoped because I think I watered it down too much. I didn't put glycerol. Ooh, maybe I should put some glycerol in there too. Oh, I can't lay this down now because it's open. I don't know, this could be bad. 2 drops. I'm not going to put any rubbing in. Should I? Maybe. Two drops of that too. And then, oh, I shook it before I opened it. Will it be okay? Yeah, it'll be okay. But, I mean, it's quite thick. Like, even when I go to pull it up in the pipette here, it's quite thick. But I just want to put a little more of it into the top of the... I don't have a lot of room left in the pen. Just a bit. Back together. Hopefully it's not too full now because I do still need it to mix. But now can you hear this? There's the ball bearings I put in there. Now I'm going to have to mix this quite well to get that glycerol mixed in. I get it. No, I think I need to. So we'll continue shaking. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the lid back on this. Whenever you're doing any Frankensteining involving pipettes and open bottles on your art desk, it's always a good idea when you're done. Ooh, this will just have straight sparkle a little bit in the outside there. To put the lids back on things before you start wildly shaking something on your desk. In fact, the glycerol I didn't tighten. I just sort of put the stopper back in there. We'll tighten that. The rubbing alcohol. There. Everything's... All right, now we can shake. Ask me how I know it's best to close bottles before you start shaking. Sometimes we have to learn things the hard way, don't we? Normally I shouldn't have to shake it this much just to use it, but because I added, you know, that extra stuff in the top, I just want to try and make sure that it's totally mixed in there. I don't know if this will work. I mean, if it doesn't, I'll just rinse this pen out and just use it as a water brush. And, I mean, you've got, how many milliliters? It's 75 milliliters of this stuff. It's not like I used up the whole thing. There's still plenty in there to just apply with a brush or... I don't know. I just thought this would be fun. All right. So you can see there's a little bit of sparkle left on the outside of the pipette. I'm just going to put this in the... I'm going to put it in the ink beaker over here to the side because I don't think... Well, you know what? Before I do that, let's check on our salvage patina marker. Let's see. It's a little streaky. I feel like it could use a little bit more ink. You know when marker nibs... Oh, sorry, you guys can't see. Sorry. You know when marker nibs just feel a little... I mean, it could just be the... This doesn't look streaky, but that's because this was just ink and water, and I added stuff. So maybe adding the glycerol and the... I'm more careful with my my coloring if I don't. That's not bad. It's getting better. Maybe that was just a little bit of ink that I had pulled up into the tip there. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Okay, I'm going to, because we do still have just a little bit of ink here, might as well put this last little bit in there. Because it doesn't feel super, this isn't very much. I think this will be okay. It doesn't feel, you know, super juicy, or it doesn't really feel dry either. I mean, it just sort of feels like when you have a marker that's just barely starting to go dry. That's kind of what it feels like. Oh, this would be easier if I took the lid off, because otherwise, I mean, keep it over top something just in case it starts dripping out. Yeah, that goes much easier too. Oh, like that. You see? Okay, maybe that was maybe too much. Yeah, it just kind of came out the end there. That's okay. It's just a little bit. The nib's juicy now. Okay, now I can put this other pipette in there too, because there's no ink left. That feels better. Yeah, it just felt a little dry when I was doing this. This feels better. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. And I don't actually see loose ink like on the outside of the cartridge, so I don't know. I think I filled that one. Yeah. And that's a pretty color. I love salvage patina. I love Victorian velvet. Like I say, if I was going to do another one, I'd probably do a green. Like maybe, yeah, see this one all got ink inside the cap. There's ink. This looks different. Can you see when it goes down? If you can see it. It's speckly. Can you see that? Whereas this isn't. That would be the glycerol. Don't know how to get glycerol in there now. I can't. It's not like that other pen where you could shake it, because it's got a cartridge it has to sort of seep all the way through. I think I'm stuck with what's in here for right now. The next time I go to refill this, I probably will put glycerol into the ink when I mix it up, because yeah, the speckliness there is because this is kind of just water. It's water and ink. Now, the speckliness kind of goes away as it dries, but this wasn't speckly right from the time I put it down. That worked really well. That's cool. Okay. Back to our last one. You are going to have to shake it every time you use it, just like those other ones. Did we manage to create something worthwhile here? All right. What happens if I squeeze it? Do it over a paper towel, because I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, that was okay. Don't squeeze it over top your picture. That's pretty sparkly on the paper towel, though. It feels a little dry, because I don't think the ink wants to flow, or ink, whatever this is that we put in there. It doesn't seem to want to keep flowing naturally. So I think I am going to have to give it a squeeze, maybe a gentle squeeze over a paper towel. Now it seems like it's too thick in there. Can you see? Can you see on the end? I sort of gave it a gentle squeeze over a paper towel, and now there's like kind of a thickish blob there that doesn't really want to soak into those bristles. I mean, I'm sure it'll go down nicely, but... Interesting. Yeah. These water pens... Oh, sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. Connie, for the crying out loud. Too excited. Got too many things going on my desk here. Let's move this out of the way. There. I think... Yeah, so we made it a little thicker so it would be sparklier. And I mean, I think you can see it sparkle and shine on top of the colors there. But these pens are meant for a much thinner liquid to move naturally down and out the bristles. Water, right? And even then, you still have to push a little bit. So I don't know if this is a replacement for one of these. I think I'd have to play with the recipe for, you know, how much I'm going to water down the iridescent medium, whether I'm going to add glycerin. Yeah. Go over one of these greens over here. Yeah, if I don't squeeze it, it's like it doesn't want to come out naturally and keep flowing. But, I mean, maybe that's true with this, too. It does say push on the outside. It's just this one seems a little bit more unpredictable when I squeeze it. Although, you probably shouldn't squeeze this one over top your work either. Who knows? I was just playing. All right. So there is my homemade, right there, my homemade glitter pen. There. Down there. Versus Spectrum Noir. Oh, a fair amount of that came out. Okay, that's still wet too. We'll give it a minute. Oh, if you guys could see my desk, there's like stuff everywhere. I'm gonna have to clean up after this. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was just curious. I was truly just curious just to see what would happen. So we made this. We made the Staedtler blender, although that was pretty easy. I just put the Staedtler solution in here. I didn't have to mix anything. And we made 2 watercolor markers out of Victorian Velvet and Salvage Patina Distress Inks. That's pretty good for an hour's work. What do you? Yeah, we're almost an hour here. Okay, so Spectrum Noir, the one we made. They're both pretty shiny. I feel like Spectrum Noir's is twinklier, if that's a word. Ours is less twinkly. Ours is a more subtle. It's more subtle and refined. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. But, yeah. I'll use this. I'll try and use it on a coloring page. I mean, I made it. Might as well. But I just thought that was a fun little chemistry science project, art for today. I hope everyone is safe. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is enjoying their coloring. Experiment. You know what? This is for me. This is a fun part of doing this hobby, and don't be afraid to experiment even in your coloring. You know, new media. Watch some tutorials if you want. I mean, I tend to kind of wing it, but, you know, watch tutorials of other people using the media and just try it. Because, I don't know, I was afraid for so long, and I'm becoming less afraid. And, oh my gosh, it's so much more fun when you're less afraid. So yeah, I hope everyone is safe, hope everyone is well, enjoying their coloring. If you like what you're seeing on my channel, consider liking the video, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, leaving me a comment, letting friends know that you found a channel that you like and they might like it too. Until next time, guys, take care. Bye-bye.